As regular viewers of my channel know, I don't have what economists refer to as a job. So when my wife casually mentioned the other day that she would like some blueberry biscuits, I turned off the margarita machine and thought, if I can keep her happy with blueberry biscuits, maybe I can continue this whole not having a job thing. Luckily, I have a great book I got from my sister-in-law. It has lots of recipes, including blueberry biscuits. Now, I've never made this recipe before. This is going to be a first time. What do you say you and I work through it together and see if we can continue this life of leisure that I'm enjoying? Looking at this recipe, we need 3 cups or 15 ounces of flour. And notice I have a glass bowl. I suddenly realized that if I have a glass bowl, you can see me actually working in the bowl. I'm getting quite good at this YouTube thing. We also need half a teaspoon of baking soda, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and 1.5 teaspoons of salt. And if you're thinking, Tom, that's a really big bowl for 1.5 teaspoons of salt. Well, it's the only bowl I got. I'm hoping that if this video makes enough money, I'll be able to afford multiple smaller bowls for these sort of presentations. Speaking of presentations, look at these prep bowls that I got for Christmas. This is 10 tablespoons of chilled butter, chopped into little pieces. I don't know how many blueberries. This is 7.5 ounces of blueberries that were frozen, and I got most of the liquid off, but then I kind of got bored because it took for so long. So we got a little extra liquid maybe. We'll see how that works out. We're gonna need some buttermilk too, but I'll get that out of the fridge when we need it. Let's start with the baking powder and baking soda. Half a teaspoon of baking soda. I like to sift it because if there's any clumps or any chunks and you get a big mouthful of baking soda or baking powder when you're eating your biscuit, you will not be happy about that. And 1.5 teaspoons of salt from my unreasonably large prep bowl. And let's mix that all together. So let's see what the next step says. Using your hands, rub butter into the flour. Rub butter into flour into flat irregular pieces. Well, I'm not going to do that. Let's take this butter. Now, one strategy I've used when I make biscuits is I put it in a food processor, like all this flour and butter and whatnot, and just let the food processor cut it into irregular pieces. Today I'm going to try this device. I think this is what it's used for. I believe it's called a butter cutter into flour device. Not 100% sure on that. This is a challenge. Maybe the food processor was the way to go. Pretty sure this is what this tool is for. Maybe it's for cutting shortening in instead of butter. Maybe the butter's too cold. Let's persevere. Let's see what happens. If this video gets enough money, then I will buy a bigger bowl for future biscuit preparation. Okay, so this is definitely not the right tool for this particular job. Next time I'm going to use the blender because I managed to throw flour everywhere and I still have big chunks of butter. I think we're going to stick with what we got. Add blueberries and toss with flour mixture. And toss with flour mixture. Add blueberries and toss with a flour mixture. All right. Well, from what I understand of the verb toss, this is tossing. All right, that looks tossed. Next step. Add blueberries. No, we did that step. Gently stir in buttermilk until no dry pockets remain. So we're gonna add 1 2/3 cup, which means I get to dirty up 2 cups. If you don't have buttermilk, you can add 1 tablespoon of vinegar to 1 cup of milk and let it sit for a few minutes, and then you'll have something that's close enough to buttermilk. Okay, so I'm gonna gently, so we're adding 1 2/3. So there's the one part. Let me gently stir that in until no dry pockets remain. Gently, I'm gently going to need a lot more than that. So let's see if this 2/3 does the trick. This looks like it's going to need a lot of gentle mixing because I see a lot of dry pockets of flour. As my patience lessens, my gentle stirring decreases. Why dirty one spatula when you can dirty 2 spatulas? That's what I always say. Okay, I think we've done okay with this concept of gently stirring in the buttermilk until there's no dry pockets. I think we got that. Transfer dough to prepared pan. It called for an 8x8 pan. I got a 9x9, that's the best I can do. Well, it's a stiff batter, I'll give it that. Well, that was a struggle, and it looks like we broke a few blueberries along the way. Now the next step says, use a bench scraper sprayed with vegetable oil spray and cut dough into 9 equal squares. So we're gonna cut it before we cook it? All right, vegetable spray. Cut into 9 equal squares. You got it, Mr. Recipe Book. Okay, look at this mess. Bake until browned on top, and paring knife inserted in center comes out clean. 35 to 40 minutes. Well, first of all, this is a bigger pan, so it's thinner, right? So it's probably not going to take as long to cook. And I'm using this little oven here, so it's probably going to cook faster. I use this little oven when I can because obviously it uses, I imagine it uses less energy than my stove. Also, take pans out before you start heating things. All right, in you go, biscuits. So it says 35 to 45 minutes, but I'm gonna go 30 and go from there. Okay, let's see how we did. This should come out clean. It did, I just stabbed a blueberry on the way. That's very, yeah, that's good. So we're gonna let this cool for 5 minutes. In the meantime, I'm gonna throw this in my warm toaster oven. It's 2 tablespoons of butter and some honey, and it's gonna melt obviously, and then we'll pour it on top of this. Our biscuits look delightful and they've been cooling down. So now the plan is to get them out of this pan. So I'm going to flip it onto this and then flip it onto this. Do you think it's gonna work? It'll be a piece of cake as long as it releases from the pan. Did it? Oh, it did. Well, mostly. We'll those are snacks for us. All right. And then we go like this. Whoop. Heyo. Just like I knew what I was doing. That looks pretty good, right? This was our first try and it turned out all right. All right, so let's put this healthy butter on it. I was a little impatient. It didn't melt all the way, but I'm sure these muffins are still warm enough to melt the butter. All right, I think we did it.